Story 1. This event occurred during a road trip. I took on my way back from visiting my family during the holiday season. I usually prefer flying, but this time, the flight tickets to my destination were surprisingly expensive, costing over $1,000 for a round trip that covered only a few states. I had carefully planned my trip to return a few days before I had to resume work, but an unexpected snowstorm forced me to extend my stay by 2 days before I could embark on the journey. The roads were nearly deserted as the holiday rush had passed, and the route I was traveling was quite remote, far from the bustling cities. The most challenging part of the trip was battling fatigue and boredom. However, the first 8 hours passed without any issues. Although I was tired, the snow-covered roads kept me alert. It was around 10 p.m., and I had a hotel reservation in a small town just 2 hours ahead. As I drove, I noticed a faint light in my rearview mirror, which turned out to be the headlights of a vehicle approaching rapidly. This was the first vehicle I had seen on the road in over an hour. The vehicle, a large van, was closing in on me quickly. When it reached my car, it matched my speed and continued to follow closely behind me. After a few seconds, it became apparent that the van had no intention of passing me. It maintained its position behind my car for nearly 10 minutes, which was quite unnerving, considering we were the only vehicles on the road at that time. The van followed so closely that I couldn't even see its front bumper or license plate in my rearview mirror. I decided to take the next exit to a gas station, hoping that the van would continue on the road and allow me to create some distance between us. To my surprise, the van followed me onto the exit ramp. I parked at a gas pump and the van pulled in behind me. At this point, confusion and unease began to creep in. I couldn't decipher if this was a sinister situation or if I was overreacting. Since this gas station was the only one I had seen in the past 30 minutes, it wasn't improbable that the van also needed fuel. As I shut off my car's engine and surveyed the area, I noticed that part of the gas station was dark, with a closed sign on the door. My gaze wandered to the surrounding area, revealing nothing but darkness, devoid of any houses or structures, except for the snowy field and the road. Glancing in my rearview mirror, I spotted a man standing outside the van, filling up his gas tank. I began to refuel my car while keeping a close eye on him. Suddenly, I heard a loud ratcheting noise as the back door of the van swung open. In that moment, instinct or a gut feeling urged me to leave immediately. I swiftly removed the gas pump from my car, and within seconds, 3 men came sprinting toward me from around the back of the van. I dropped the pump and hurriedly got into my car, locking the doors. One of them tried to wrench open the car door handle. Trembling with fear, I started my car, and all 3 of them rushed around, attempting to open each door. However, before they could make another move, they sprinted back to their van without a word. I wasted no time and drove away, watching as they departed in the opposite direction from where we had come. I reported the incident to the police, but I never received any updates on the case. It was evident that they had sinister intentions, possibly attempting to abduct people on the desolate highway during the cover of night. What terrified me most was how efficiently and confidently they executed their plan, almost as if they had done it numerous times before. I shudder to think about what might have happened if they had succeeded. I implore everyone to learn from my experience and remain vigilant, for not everyone may be as fortunate as I was. Story 2. In the year 2019, I worked as a delivery driver for a local pizza establishment near my college campus. I typically worked after my classes to make ends meet, covering my car and rent expenses. It wasn't the most glamorous job, but it helped me get through college without emptying my pockets. One particular night followed the usual routine. I clocked in at 6 p.m., spent 3 hours making deliveries, took a lunch break, and resumed deliveries at 9:30 p.m. I received an order and set off to the indicated address. The address didn't appear to be a residential one, but the route guided me further away from town, leading to a business district filled with small office buildings. The directions on my GPS guided me, and I hoped it would eventually lead me to the correct parking lot. Upon arriving at the destination, I found myself in a long, empty parking area, shrouded in darkness. Not a single streetlight illuminated the area, and the office building showed no signs of activity. I parked my vehicle and approached the building, checking to ensure the address matched the one on the order. It did. I even attempted a Google search for nearby places with the same address, but found none. Perplexed but determined to complete the delivery, I proceeded to the glass door of the building, which had a dark tint. I knocked, took a step back, and waited. After a brief moment, the door opened, revealing a middle-aged man dressed casually, sporting a peculiar grin on his face. He seemed overly excited, expressing relief that the food had finally arrived, claiming that everyone was hungry. Glancing behind him, I noticed no one else, and only a single light illuminated the hallway. Despite the odd circumstances, I conveyed the total cost of the order to him. The man, however, seemed to sense my hesitance and quickly explained that the rest of the people were in the recreation room on the third floor for a company party. Politely, I agreed to help, feeling somewhat obligated due to the generous tip he had given me. Carrying a few pizzas upstairs didn't seem like a major inconvenience. He led the way to a door that led to a stairwell. As I entered, I immediately noticed a chilling draft, and the lights were extinguished, with only a faint glow from the hallway providing minimal visibility. The man proceeded to climb the stairs, but he halted upon realizing I hadn't followed closely. He turned, making a light-hearted comment about the dim lights. However, his grin vanished when he realized I wasn't going any further. Without hesitation, he swiftly descended the stairs, his eyes filled with anger, and I quickly tossed the pizzas aside, retreating through the door and into the hallway. I ran towards the exit and sprinted to my car. I observed the man partially emerge from the front doors before abruptly retreating and slamming them shut. I immediately dialed the police after parking in a different lot. By the time they arrived, the man had vanished. Since he had paid in cash, there was no way to identify him. The office building was deserted, and the third floor revealed no sign of any other occupants. It was evident that this encounter was a trap, but what awaited me on that third floor remains a mystery. I hope that no one else ever has to experience a similar situation. At the time, I was working for my father at his small construction business. His responsibilities included managing a yard and warehouse stocked with construction materials and overseeing job sites where his workers were employed. Since I was only 17 years old at the time, my role mainly involved serving as a gopher. I would transport materials, fetch tools, and perform various tasks as needed. Depending on the job requirements, some materials had to be delivered before the workers arrived in the morning to ensure they could start their tasks promptly. This meant I occasionally had to start work extremely early, around 2 or 3 a.m., to guarantee everything was in place on time. Of course, these early shifts only occurred during the summer when I wasn't attending school. I had no valid excuse to avoid work, and I found satisfaction in completing my deliveries early in the day. On one specific day, I arrived at the warehouse at 3 a.m., loaded up the materials, and embarked on my journey to the job site. The assignment entailed repairing an old, possibly abandoned building located on the outskirts of our town. Upon reaching the location, I noticed a truck parked outside. Its lights were off, and it seemed devoid of any occupants. Given the early hour, it was highly unlikely that any workers were already on site. I parked my vehicle, approached the truck, and attempted to peer inside, but the windows were tinted, concealing the interior. I then turned my attention to the building, calling out to check if anyone was present, but received no response. Unease began to creep in, and I retrieved my phone to call my father. After several rings, the call went to voicemail. Assuming the truck belonged to one of the workers and that they might have missed my earlier attempts at communication, I returned to my truck and commenced unloading the materials. This process took approximately an hour. As I prepared to leave, I glanced in my rear-view mirror and was startled to witness the truck's lights suddenly illuminate. I instinctively slammed the brakes, bringing my vehicle to a halt at the roadside. I watched as the truck began reversing, revealing that someone had been inside all along. I quickly retrieved my phone and called my father again, anxiously waiting for him to answer. While I waited, I observed the truck stopping next to me. I felt the weight of someone's gaze from behind the truck's tinted window. I tossed my phone onto the seat and attempted to move forward, but the truck matched my speed, preventing me from re-entering the road. With dense trees to my left and the truck blocking my right, panic began to set in. I shifted into reverse, attempting to retreat. The truck mimicked my movements, eventually tapping the rear of my car. This caused me to lose control, veering off the shoulder and colliding with a nearby tree. The truck halted momentarily at the top of the road, as if the driver intended to exit the vehicle. However, their brake lights extinguished, and they shifted back into drive, accelerating away. Approximately 20 seconds later, another vehicle arrived on the scene. A man emerged, rushing towards me, inquiring if I was okay. At the time, I didn't know his name, but he was one of the workers arriving at the job site. He had only witnessed the tail end of the incident. The worker identified the truck as belonging to Samuel, another employee my father had hired a few months earlier. Subsequently, we discovered that tools and materials worth nearly $10,000 had gone missing from the job site, all traceable to that fateful night. It appeared that Samuel had likely been pilfering items gradually over the past few months. My suspicion is that on that night, Samuel realized that if I saw his truck, it would eventually lead back to him, potentially exposing his theft. He attempted to prevent me from leaving as the only witness. I can only speculate about what might have happened had I not escaped. Unfortunately, Samuel's identity and credentials proved to be fraudulent, suggesting he might have been an undocumented immigrant or a criminal using counterfeit or stolen identification. Such an experience was entirely unexpected, but I am grateful that I will likely never encounter that man again.